Hello and welcome to our discussion on developing the marketing mix. Within any discussion on business planning, I like to have a focus on marketing because it's really the place where you focus and work to understand customer needs and wants, and that's at the heart of the business. So within that, we'll talk about building the marketing plan that addresses these needs and wants, both now and in the future, and building a marketing mix that works presently and that also is adaptable as your venture grows and thrives. So the marketing mix really starts with the customer and problem hypothesis of recognizing and identifying who your customers are by demographic, but as well by psychographic of behaviors and attitudes. We want to understand what their problems are, what opportunities that we can bring forward to them in our solutions. And we also want to think about the types of customers, the needs and wants, the typical days in the life, the return on investment of what are they spending on your product or service, and what are they getting out of it, be it in some level of cost savings, be it in some level of revenue generation, be it in some level of general satisfaction, happiness, etc. But what is the investment and what's the benefit for them? We also want to recognize minimum and desired feature sets and what their willingness to pay is. Customers may like many things, and many people may like your idea, but it's not until you attach a price point to it that you're really asking them if they're willing to pay for it. And so we want to recognize not only do people like what we have, but are they willing to pay what we need for the venture to be profitable. And when we think about needs and wants and how do we categorize or quantify that, it can happen in many different ways. To highlight a few, we may be selling a product or a service that's going to reduce someone's expenses. It may be something that's more energy efficient. It may be something that's going to help them be more productive. So productivity, quality is another feature. Are we bringing something to the market, either for a customer or for another business, that's going to improve their quality and or improve their profitability? There also may be other elements like improving education, improving social trends, improving safety or security. So when you think about product and service ideas that you have, I'd encourage you to use something like this to evaluate what types of needs and wants are we addressing. Hopefully we're addressing multiple of these. Unfortunately, many products and services that people come up with may not address any of these, and I would say that it's those that are going to have a hard time in succeeding. And what we want to recognize is that only through understanding the needs and wants of customers can we develop marketing activities and sales activities that result in this intersection of buying. And so for a buying to occur, for a transaction to occur, we need to understand these wants. We need to be able to articulate those wants within our marketing activities to develop a product and communicate the benefits of that product, and that we have an adequate way of selling that product or service. And it's only at the intersection, once we have the needs, the sales, and the marketing, that the buying occurs. So within our marketing plan, there is certainly a large chunk of the business plan that's addressed towards marketing, that talks about the product and the service, that talks about how you're going to promote and advertise, that talks about the pricing, what your business model is, what your pricing strategy is, as well as how you're going to place or distribute or sell the product. Now there is also a marketing plan that you may develop that gets into more detail within each of these for your venture. But the orientation here is to recognize that many of the building blocks for your marketing plan is actually going to be within the business plan itself. So you're addressing these within the business plan. And what we mean by the 4 Ps are product, price, promotion, and place. Marketing is about much more than simply advertising. And we'll see that advertising is actually even a subset of the broader category of promotion, with all of these P's being in the broad category of marketing. So we're going to go through by example and talk about each of the 4 P's. So from a product standpoint, a recent success in the US was something called the Flip. And the Flip was a very portable camcorder, very low price point, that gave multiple hours of high quality production capability. And with this, you could capture 2 hours of video quality on built-in memory, running on 2 AA batteries. And with this, it had rapid success, partially because it was very inexpensive. It was very easy to use. You can see a single button on the back to start and stop. There was an aesthetic and that there were multiple colors available. So we see some trends that we would see in Apple, for example, of something that's a little, fashion friendly. And also it had some built-in online access where you could instantly upload your videos to Facebook and MySpace and YouTube and others. So very simple and easy to use, and you didn't have to go to a computer to upload. You could upload directly from your Flip device. So you see here how they've articulated the features and functions of the product, the design, the portability, the utility, etc. So that's what we mean when we talk about the product. It's not only a description of the product, but it's detailed on the features and the functions and the capabilities. Now for price, what we're looking for here is the list price, other discounts, credit terms, payment periods, things of that nature. And key considerations here are your cost. So to be able to sell something at a price, you need to know what it's going to cost you to develop it, as well as what it's going to cost you to market and support it. So your cost play a central role in setting the price, and the price being what you're going to be able to charge for that. Another element that greatly influences price is what competitors are charging. And so what I suggest for that, as a new entrant, we have the tendency to try and dramatically underprice our product. And what I mean by that is if a product comes along from a competitor for $200 and we have a new product that we want to introduce that doesn't have a brand, we may feel compelled to offer it for $100 or for $50, offering a dramatic discount. Oftentimes that has an unintended consequence if our product appears vastly insignificant or less superior or just simply cheap, and that people do often equate the price with the quality. So if you do have a product that is near in quality to a competitor or better in quality to a competitor, you may not be able to charge exactly what they charge because they do have a brand and a loyal following, but you should be able to charge just below that and have success, particularly if you have a better offering. So be careful not to underprice your product. Also recognize what your manufacturing and production costs are and examine the financial statements of competitors if possible. And what I mean by that in examining financial statements of competitors is that a private firm, a small firm, is not going to have their financial information public. But if you are competing in a category where there are large firms, publicly traded firms, for example, if you were competing in the flip video category, Cisco is a company that acquired Flip, and we could look at Cisco because they are a public company, publicly traded stock, and we can go to finance.google, finance.yahoo, other online sources that post this information on a regular basis, and we can see exactly for Cisco, the parent of Flip, what were their revenues in 2009, what's the cost of that revenue, what did they spend on selling, general marketing, what was their R&D budget, all the way down to what were their taxes and profit. So in that way, this gives us a landscape of all the products that Cisco manufactures and sells. What does that look like on an annual and a quarterly basis? And you can see this as well for their balance sheet and for their cash flows that we'll talk a little about in week 6. So a lot of numbers here, but what we're interested in the context of pricing are the cost of revenue, which is their cost of manufacturing, as a percentage of revenues, which are their total aggregate sales. And so what this means is they had 13 divided by 36, or 36%, meaning that 36 cents of every dollar in revenues was used to manufacture the product. So in that way, it gives us some metric to recognize, well, what they are able to charge, a percentage of that is being used to cover their production cost. And here, with a $120 retail price, a 36% cost of goods sold or manufacturing price, that we could estimate a $43 maximum cost for the manufacturing per unit. And this, in my experience, is a decent way of gauging cost. It's not perfect. A couple of challenges here is it does bundle all of the products that Cisco sells together, and they certainly sell more than the Flip Video. And it assumes a retail price, whereas Cisco does not sell a lot of product directly to end users. They typically sell to intermediaries or may sell through retailers. So in essence, this price may be a bit lower when they're actually bringing it to market as well, which would suggest that this price is a maximum and the real price is probably lower than that. But it gives us something to work with. So in that sense, if Cisco is selling to retailers and the revenues are less than 119, we know also that Cisco is much larger than any startup. And so in that way, our cost of production will be higher as well. But it gives us some measure of being able to look at the cost of revenue and the revenue to calculate a percentage, to multiply that percentage by an estimated sale price, and to get an estimated cost of manufacturing for that unit. And that helps us in setting our pricing as well. Within promotion, there are many different areas here. Press is something I greatly encourage. It does not cost you anything to have an article written about you if you can convince a writer that you're newsworthy. And it also is viewed oftentimes as being more credible than a paid advertisement. And you can do many things on your own these days. You can have the Facebook sites that incentivize and reward, or at least give your customers the opportunity to give you praise. You can do paid advertisement within Google and the paid placement. And so we see these sponsored links, and these are based on keywords that you would sponsor. So we saw that when we searched on the video camcorder, that Flip was listed in some of the natural search returns, but they were also listed here within Amazon and others as part of the paid returns. Print advertising is something too that may work for you. It may be expensive, in that for a national magazine, you may be over $20,000 for a single run, meaning one issue, one time, one page, $20,000. So it's not something that a lot of startups do. But you can do other things like direct mail that may have a very low response rate, but also gives you the opportunity to target customers very specifically. And there are companies like InfoUSA.com and others that are in the business of assisting with these direct marketing campaigns. The last thing I want to speak to is place. Flip was sold many different retail outlets, as you can see here, including a variety of online retailers. So you want to think about, where do we want to sell our product? And before you can enter these large market categories, typically you're selling in smaller markets and to smaller stores, proving out your capability and your price point, making your supply chain more efficient, and then you can go into a larger venue and have a more compelling pitch. And with Cisco, what we found is that they actually acquired Flip Video in 2009 for $590 million. So in that way, they had a very concerted and concentrating marketing effort that was very successful, that allowed them to grow and scale the firm, that allowed them to sell more than 2 million units, and they had great success in the early years of their venture and were acquired by a large company. And 2 years later, they were closed down. So with an acquisition of $590 million in March 2009, roughly 2 years later, Cisco decided to stop making the product. And you may ask, well, why? And there's something called the iPhone, and there are other smartphones that have such a video recording capability with high quality, with low cost, with the ability to post directly online. So what we found here was a product that in its time was very successful, but that time only lasted about 2 years. The product did not evolve significantly. The element of let me have a flip video camera and a smartphone was somewhat inconsistent, and the smartphone began to essentially absorb some of these elements. So what we found here is that it was a great product for its time, but that time was relatively short-lived. But the marketing during that time was very effective. So we want to understand customers in demand. That's centrally core to what you're doing with your business. We want to recognize the value of market planning. But what I would also say about Flip Video is recognize that new competitors are ever present. And it may be competitors that do what you do the way you do it, such as Kodak and Sony and others, that had these small handheld devices that did nothing but video recording. Or your competitors may be the smartphones. So it's something else that emerged and emerged rapidly, that had a variety of capabilities within the smartphone, but the video recording was a big differentiator. And they essentially were able to absorb and replace the Flip Video and many of their competitors. So always be on the lookout for what's new and around the corner and what new competitors may emerge and how you should adapt your marketing plan for that. Thank you.